while ago, someone said to me, and I was just thinking, maybe not exactly a friend, who said, "Oh, I see you're still doing that feminist activism thing then." And I thought for a moment, I said, "Yes, actually." But I thought about it. And I thought, there's no statute of limitations. There's no age of retirement when what you're after, you haven't got. And when what you're after, the people around you haven't got. When you know that freedom that you want everybody in the world to have, when that is still too far away to give up. And I know that sounds like a contradiction, but I think you know probably what I mean. So I thought to myself, that's really why I'm still doing that feminist activism thing. And because there are things that I think are not all that far away, that we almost have, and that we need to grasp. And I thought for that reason I'd speak just a little bit personally, which I don't actually always do, whatever some of you may think. But I grew up, a good, more or less, Catholic, middle-class girl in Dublin. And I am so aware, and to pick up on something that Raoul said earlier, I'm so aware of all the privileges that my whiteness, my urbanness, and above all, my middle-classness give me in my life. All of the privileges that they gave me, that they continue to give me, that they will always give me in my life. And the protections. But there was something that all those privileges and protections didn't do anything for me. And it was in the bit of me that's a woman. And I quickly began to see that for all those privileges and for all those protections, there was a part of me that was incredibly vulnerable, that was always exposed, that was always open there, somehow, for the world with its heavy footfall of power to stamp on me and to say, "No, you won't go there. You won't do that. You won't have this. You can't aspire to something. You can't even dream to reach that place." And that made me ultimately extremely angry. And I knew, and to pick up on something that Colm said, I knew that wasn't just for me, that the world hadn't turned this way to me, that there was a system there that kept me and people like me, and even people not all that like me at all, that kept us in some place that they wanted to have us in. And that is a place of unfreedom. It is a place where you can be trapped. And I found myself trapped in that place, like so many hundreds and millions and billions of women over the ages have found ourselves trapped in. The traps that you get into because we, the women, are the ones who reproduce. We're the ones who have to set up the homes and the families, and we have to stay with them to raise the children. And we get punished for it. We don't get helped. We don't get supported. We don't get what we need. And we never, or very rarely, have the space in the public arena to express what it is we need and what it is we want and what it is we are entitled to. And if you think I'm dramatizing or exaggerating, I just look back over my own very middle class and in many ways very ordinary life. And I think in pretty well everything I have set out to do at any time in my life, and I was never all that ambitious, frankly, I have encountered obstacles and been thwarted in my workplace in a university, which didn't give a damn about women. When I was a young student in UCD, and even when I was a lecturer, there was no help for women. There were 2 women professors, I think, 2 women full professors. The curriculum I was teaching was all about men. And it took a lot of hard work for an awful lot of women all over the world to begin the upheaval that was going to change that. And as I worked in that place, doing not always what I was told and beginning to do different things, at the same time, I was going through the hoops of being married, incredibly unsuccessfully. It lasted 6 months. And then I couldn't get unmarried because there was no divorce. So that had to be fought for. And all along my life as a young woman, worrying all the time about becoming pregnant and trying to get contraceptives. You couldn't get contraception. And a friend finally told me when I was 21, please note, what you need to do is go to your GP and tell a lie. You have to stand in front of your GP, or sit if you're lucky, and say, my menstrual cycle is very upside down, don't you know? And he'll give you the pill if you tell him that, which I did. And he colluded, and he gave it to me. It was not for my menstrual cycle. It was to ensure that I didn't get pregnant or fall pregnant. We don't fall pregnant. There are 2 people involved. It's not a fall. And childcare, looking after the child I had eventually with someone else. Shock, horror, not the child's, not my husband. I couldn't have a husband. Well, I had a husband, but I couldn't get rid of him. So what other way was I going to have the child? And running into problems over that because she was considered illegitimate. Was that the bell? Hadn't even started. So I will skip rapidly over the rest of my life, which involved, at one stage, coming out, as they say, as lesbian. Only there wasn't anybody to come out to except other lesbians and gay men. Because in this country, if you tried to tell your family, my family was no different from yours or yours or yours, they didn't want to know. In fact, the misogyny of the homophobia was so profound that I really didn't know anyone except other lesbians who could use the word lesbian. And if they did have to use it, they blenched. And that gave me great sorrow and great grief. It also caused great grief in my personal life. But I got over that and went on to fight the fights that we all fight and that we have to fight in my everyday life. But all the time, there was the constant thread of that necessary freedom that women must have. There are 2, our economic freedom and our reproductive freedom, control over our own bodies. And that's why I have continued from 1979 to now to fight for women's right to make our own choices freely about our own bodies. That, to me, is the most precious freedom that we must have. And I'm going on fighting for that now. I fought for myself as a young woman, then for my daughter and her right to make her own choices, and now I fight for my granddaughter. And for all women, that we may all have that autonomy and that integrity of our own bodies. So I say to you, if it needs a revolution for us to repeal the Eighth Amendment, let's do it. Let's go for it. Let's just do it. And I want to finish because standing in this extraordinary place and thinking of the 150 plus women who fought in the Rising 101 years ago, and the 77 women who were arrested and imprisoned, and to honour those women and their great bravery and courage in fighting for freedom, and to quote really Oh, I think she must be the greatest revolutionary of us all. The wonderful Constance Markovich. I'm sure you know the quote, but it's always worth giving again. Dress suitably in short skirts and sitting boots. Leave your jewels and gold wands in the bank and buy a revolver.